Hey guys, this is Doug again with fellowshipofthemartyrs.com. We're doing a quick video. I don't know how quick. I think this one will be pretty short. We're talking about some of the idiots in the Bible. And I use that tongue-in-cheek, because of course they weren't really idiots. They just were men that made mistakes. And God still used them anyway. And they're listed in the Pantheon of Heroes in Hebrews chapter 11. I'm looking at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. He says, "What more shall I say?" After he's run through a list of some of these guys. I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets who, through faith, conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, yabba, 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 and the world was not worthy of them. I want to talk specifically for a minute about Barak. Now, this is not the current president, Barak. This is Barak in the Bible. And to learn about Barak, we're going to go to the book of Judges, chapter 4. Now, the book of Judges is right before 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, where before there was a king in Israel, before Saul and David and all the kings of Israel, there were the judges. And I think the Lord much preferred that system, but the people begged and pleaded for a king like everybody else had, instead of God just raising up the person that was obviously the person they should be following because the Lord was with them. And they would have to identify who the judge was by what the judge did, and by the wisdom, and by the rightness, and by who had the Holy Spirit on them. But they said, no, all the other nations have kings, we want a king. The Lord says they're going to rule you harshly and tax you and take your kids and go to war and make it all about them and take your stuff. We don't care, we want a king. Okay. Anyway, in Judges chapter 6 and in Judges chapter 4, we see one of the judges named Deborah. And it sounds like Deborah is a girl name, and that's because Deborah is a girl name. So I'm going to read it for you, and we're going to talk a little bit about Barak and the kind of fear that he had that kept him from receiving the reward that he was supposed to potentially have received. Chapter 4. After Ehud died, the Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So there's two generations where Ehud, right before this, saved Israel, struck down 600 Philistines. He's doing great. Israel's okay. And then again, this is the third time in Judges, they fall again. Again, they did evil in the sight of the Lord. After Ehud died, the Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, a king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Because he had 900 iron chariots and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, they cried to the Lord for help. Okay, so they did wrong again, and for 20 years they get oppressed. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. Okay, no question about it, the Bible's clear, she was leading Israel. She was the judge that the Lord had put in place. Everybody's pretty much following her. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel, in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to have their disputes decided. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. I will lure Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River, and give them into your hands." Okay, so to set the stage, the chariots are the thing that's really dangerous. These big iron chariots and whatever, that the cavalry that makes his army particularly dangerous. So God says, I want you to go to the hill country, and I'm going to lure them to the Kishon River, to the low country. And you're going to have the high ground, and the chariots won't be able to chase you up the hill. And so it's kind of a trap. Barak says to Deborah, if you go with me, I'll go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go. Okay, so he wants an assurance that this is a word from the Lord by her risking her own life to go and not just risking his life. Or maybe he's afraid that he needs to take the judge out with him, or that she's closer to God, or whatever's going through his head. It's fear and doubt and double-mindedness. And she says, "Very well," Deborah said, "I will go with you. But because of the way you're going about this, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will hand Sisera over to a woman." So she says, okay, because you hemmed and hawed and you said, "I will, but," and didn't just obey God, you're not going to get the glory. The final glory for killing Sisera, who's the general that's been oppressing everybody and everybody's mad at, is going to go to a woman, because you wanted to take a woman into battle with you. So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh, where he summoned Zebulun and Naphtali. Those are 2 of the 12 tribes. So they send the word out because they're the closest tribes. We need your warriors. And all of the tribes have kind of a standing army of guys that are ready to be conscripted when there's a need. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite had left the other Kenites, the descendants of Hobab, Moses' brother-in-law, and pitched his tent by the great tree in Zananim near Kadesh. When they told Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone to Mount Tabor, Sisera gathered together his 900 iron chariots and all the men with him from Harosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went down Mount Tabor, followed by 10,000 men. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and army by the sword. So the Lord routed them at the sword, and Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. But Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim, which is their hometown. All the troops of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a single man was left. Sisera, however, fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Okay, now, earlier we see that Heber the Kenite had left the other Kenites and had pitched a tent near there. So he flees to somebody he thinks is friendly. So he fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there were friendly relations between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the clan of Heber the Kenite. But Heber had left the Kenites. Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in. Don't be afraid." Okay, you don't go into a woman's tent. Unless you're the husband, you just do not go into the woman's tent. This is a good place to hide because nobody expects that he's going to be in there. And she has to invite him in and say, "It's okay, come on in, hide in here." So he entered her tent and she put a covering over him. So she lays him down and puts some blankets or whatever, animal hide or something over him. He says, "I'm thirsty, please give me some water." She opened a skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him up. He said, "Stand in the doorway of the tent," he told her. "If someone comes by and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say no." Okay? So he's exhausted from the battle. He's the only guy left standing. He finds what he thinks is a friendly tent, comes into the woman's chamber. She covers him up, and he's going to get some rest, and she's going to guard the door and make sure that nobody bothers him. But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg, that you'd use to hold the ropes of the corner of the tent, and a hammer, and went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. He's laying down. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. So she sneaks up on him, holds the tent peg, wham, with a big mallet right through his head into the ground. Barak came by in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael went out to meet him. "Come," she said, "I will show you the man you're looking for. He's nailed to the ground." So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera with the tent peg through his temple, dead. On that day, God subdued Jabin, the Canaanite king, before the Israelites, and the hand of the Israelites grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, the Canaanite king, until they destroyed him. In chapter 5, Deborah and Barak sing a song of victory and glory and memorializing Jael and how she got the glory, and making fun of Sisera, and his mom is probably at home crying, "Where is he?" and sure that he's going to be fine, but he's not. He's nailed to the ground, whatever. And it says, then the land had peace for 40 years. Over and over and over. They got oppressed for 40 years. They live at peace for 40 years. Anyway, so that's the story of Barak. Now, we don't know anything else about him really, except that Deborah said, hey, you're the guy. He'll take 10,000 men, kick Sisera's butt. God's going to give you victory. He said, nah, I really need a woman to go with me. Okay, well then you're not going to get the glory. The glory's going to go to a woman. So he was double-minded and doubtful and fearful, whatever was going through his head. She says, because you did this the wrong way, the glory's not going to go to you. And sure enough, Jael gets all the glory, and she's memorialized forever as the brave little soul that drove a tent peg through a guy's head. And yet, this guy still makes the Pantheon of Heroes for driving off Israel's enemies and being used by God, even though Jael doesn't make the list, even though she's the one that killed the commander and was so brave and everything. So, again, the point of the videos is simply to take a look at some of these characters, hopefully to tell you some Bible stories that are kind of cool. You know, a whole lot of movies, a whole lot of books, a whole lot of literature throughout all of history, the last 2,000 years, and farther back, is based on the stories in this book. Whether it's Star Wars or Superman, or, you know, there's just lots and lots of themes in here that are repeated over and over and over. It is the most published, most purchased book in all of history. And more popular than Harry Potter, more popular than anything. So maybe it's worth you sitting down and reading and hearing some of these stories, if nothing else. So I hope that I put a hunger in you to just go read the Bible and read through some of these stories and some of this history, documented, provable history, and understand, you know, the amazing complexity of this book that weaves together all kinds, dozens of different authors across 4,000 year period, and all with a coherent theme headed the same direction. It's really beautiful, and all of them with applications and ripples to your life, to Israel, to the United States, to the world, to the church. You know, you begin to see the multifaceted, multi-hued, you know, wisdom and beauty and complexity of God as you read His Word and start to see how it applies in different ways, historically, poetically, prophetically, all different ways. Anyway, that's about Barak. We're going to do one about Gideon, and I think that'll pretty much cover initially some of the folks there in Hebrews 11. But we'll see if there's requests for other characters. We'll talk about them too. Thanks. More at fellowshipofthemartyrs.com.